Good evening, these are the top stories making news right now. Lydia Thorpe to lodge a human rights complaint against the Greens over alleged racist treatment, as she also says she won't lead a progressive no campaign against the voice to Parliament. Central Victoria's footy community in mourning after the death of a teenage boy, with the club today opening its doors as a safe space for those affected. New footage released of the building destroyed in that massive Sydney fire, with a third boy now coming forward to police. And Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis set to go head-to-head in the race for Republican US presidential nomination after the Florida governor's launch was hampered by technical issues. We begin this hour out of Canberra with Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe revealing she will lodge a human rights complaint against her old party over alleged racist treatment when she was a member. Thorpe quit the Greens earlier this year to lead the Black Sovereignty movement. She has said that she received legal advice. She does have enough grounds for a case, but would leave it to lawyers for further comment. Back in March, the Victorian Senator also claimed she was bullied by members of the Greens. Today, she said she won't lead a progressive no campaign against the Indigenous voice to Parliament, denying she is in the no camp at all. National reporter Austin Pollock has the latest.
Thorpe has denied she will lead a progressive no campaign, but continues to weigh up her options and push the government on issues like treaty. She's also questioning whether the voice would actually help First Nations people.
I'm not in the no camp. I've never been in the no camp, and my position has been clear all along, and that is that we need a treaty in this country. I'm considering to abstain from the up-and-coming vote, given our people want a treaty.
Now, newly published analysis reported in 9 newspapers has also shown that most active Twitter accounts opposing the voice are people using false identities rather than computerised bots. Queensland University of Technology senior lecturer Dr. Timothy Graham said there was, quote, little evidence that either sides are deploying bots and no evidence that there are any difference in the number of bot-like accounts on both sides. ASIO has also said there are no indication of attempts by foreign actors to interfere in the referendum. However, they are preparing for some possible spontaneous violence around the referendum. It also comes as the Victorian Nationals join their federal counterpart in opposing the voice. Now, at this stage, a date for the referendum has still not been announced.
2 men, both Greek nationals, have been charged by police after 120 kilograms of cocaine was seized by authorities. The drugs was allegedly kept within the walls of a shipping container at Port Botany in Sydney. A 27-year-old was arrested at the scene and a 19-year-old since arrested in Leichhardt. Both refused bail and are due in court on June 13 and July 20 respectively. Police are set to allege the men travelled from Athens to retrieve the cocaine for an organised crime syndicate here in Australia. There are new details tonight about a horror crash that has left a close-knit community in shock. 4 teenagers, 2 males and 2 females, died at the scene in a single vehicle crash, while a 5th was flown to hospital with life-threatening injuries. The crash happened at Bokhara, outside Hamilton in regional Victoria. It's been reported the teenagers in the car were locals. A passerby found the wreckage yesterday morning before local police arrived. Central Victoria's footy community is in mourning after the death of a teenage boy. The club has today opened its doors as a safe space for those affected. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has more.
Central Victoria's footy community in mourning after the death of a teenage boy during a game. Emergency services were called to report of an unresponsive 17-year-old boy on a football field yesterday afternoon. He was taken to hospital, where he later died. Police say his death is not being treated as suspicious. It's understood the boy was an under-18s player for the Castlemaine Football Club, competing in the Bendigo Football Netball League. In a statement, they said that the club's and the league's priority is providing support for the family, friends, teammates and coaches of the player. The club and league will continue to work together closely and kindly request that privacy be respected during this incredibly difficult time. Castlemaine's social rooms were open from midday today as a safe space. Greater Bendigo Liberal Councillor Matthew Evans says what has happened is incredibly saddening and devastating, adding my sincerest of condolences and prayers to the family and the entire Castlemaine Football Netball Club. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
New drone footage has been released of the building that was destroyed by a fire in Surrey Hills, Sydney. An exclusion zone has been set up and will remain as the cleanup from damage caused by falling walls continues. The building was heritage listed and formerly operated as a factory. A third boy, 12 years old, has come forward and is understood to be assisting police now, following two teenage boys also handing themselves into separate police stations. No charges have been laid, with authorities also working to make sure all 15 people reported to have been sleeping rough inside the building the night before are accounted for. The Queensland Government will launch a new life-saving program aimed at teaching kids how to swim. $4.8 million will be allocated in the upcoming state budget over a 2-year period for a new Swim Start program. Over 30,000 vouchers valued up to $150 will be available for eligible children aged up to 4 years. The aim of the program is to improve water safety for kids. Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk says the initiative will give kids the best start at learning to swim and build on the swimming program already offered in schools statewide. US President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy have reached an agreement in principle aiming to resolve a debt crisis and cut back on federal spending. On Twitter, Biden described it as an important step forward that reduces spending while protecting critical programs for working people and growing the economy for everyone. He added that this agreement is good news for the American people because it prevents what could have been a catastrophic default and would have led on to an economic recession, retirement accounts devastated, and millions of jobs lost. The US Treasury had already warned that it would run out of money to pay all its bills within weeks if there was not a resolution. It comes as the race for president in 2024 continues, with Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis going head-to-head in the bid for Republican Party nomination. Our North American correspondent Wyatt Sharp has the details.
Everyone seemed to be making light of this moment. Everyone seemed to be enjoying this moment. That is, unless you are on Team DeSantis. A lot of political consultants for Team Ron DeSantis are probably reconsidering a lot of their decisions as to what they went with. They decided to do a Twitter Spaces, which is essentially just a modern day version of, in the 1900s, what AM radio was. It really isn't too far advanced. So you have a lot of people criticizing it for that reason, criticizing the fact that the DeSantis campaign, someone said that I was talking with earlier, that it looks really bad on the DeSantis campaign, that they can't even get something like AM radio to work, for example. You also have, it's not just Donald Trump making light of the situation. You have some of the other GOP competitors. Asa Hutchinson did something similar on Twitter. President Joe Biden put out a tweet saying this link works, and it was a link to the Democratic Party's campaign fundraising link in order to raise funds for their campaign in 2024. So certainly everyone, unless you are on Team DeSantis, on Team Ron DeSantis, is making light of the situation. People at Twitter, for example, because this is obviously an embarrassing moment for them also. I mean, in retrospect, yes, they are saying they broke the internet. They're saying they had this massive turnout, but really it was only a couple 100,000 people, which is a relatively good number, but it really shouldn't be something that, breaks the internet. Within several hours on some online social channels, on YouTube, etc., there can be videos that gain millions, if not tens of millions of hits. So, getting 300,000 views, for example, on a presidential campaign launch really isn't too significant. In addition to that, it makes it really difficult for media to cover an event when it is something on Twitter Spaces, because you can't just broadcast a Twitter space on, say, one of the major broadcasting networks in the same way that you can broadcast a standard traditional presidential campaign announcement, the likes of which all of the other candidates in the race, like Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Asa Hutchinson, like all of them have done at this point in time. At this point in time, it seems like the perhaps more interesting race than the presidency is who can be Donald Trump's vice presidential nominee. A lot of people I speak with say that they're actually looking at a lot of the candidates in this race as potential vice presidential nominees for the Republican Party in 2024. That a lot of the reason why a lot of the major candidates in this race have been critical of or I guess you could say less critical, hesitant to come out and be critical of Donald Trump in this race is because they want to be his vice presidential nominee in 2024. That is very similar to Tim Scott. Even Donald Trump, for example, gave some friendly words of good luck to Senator Tim Scott, the South Carolina senator, when he announced that he was going to be running for president. Donald Trump put out a press release, his campaign hid, wishing Tim Scott well, saying that they worked together well on opportunity zones, and that during his time as a United States Senator with Tim Scott, that Tim Scott worked extremely well, and really praising him with good luck. That's really the opposite of what we've seen with someone like Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, who just announced for months in the lead up to this announcement that just took place last week. You saw Donald Trump's campaign team funding millions of dollars going after Ron DeSantis. Why? It's likely because we know that he is the biggest threat at this point in time as to, how big of a rival they are to each other. Ron DeSantis is undoubtedly Donald Trump's biggest rival for the Republican nomination in 2024, and it goes both ways. If Ron DeSantis wants to win the presidency in 2024, he's going to have to defeat Donald Trump as well. The interesting component of things at this point in time, everyone seems to still be supporting Donald Trump, who you can expect to be supporting him. Those who, you could tell right from the get-go are really intense political allies of the former president. I'm thinking the Rudy Giulianis of the world, and, perhaps some of the newer names to people, the ones who aren't as well known, people like Carrie Lake, who ran for Arizona governor in the 2022 midterms. A lot of people were floating her as a potential vice presidential nominee for Donald Trump as well. They are all remaining very close to the former president because it's essentially, in essence, the fact that Donald Trump is kind of the unofficial leader of the Republican Party at this point in time. If you're, not going against, if you are going against Donald Trump, many people that I've been speaking with over the past little while said that they're frustrated that over the fact that if you don't align with someone like Donald Trump in today's Republican Party, that kind of automatically illustrates you as a moderate. And we've seen that with people like Asa Hutchinson, but we've seen that with people outside of the presidential race as well, with former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, former Congressman Adam Kinzinger, and lots of folks within the Republican Party, even some of those who have come out and endorsed Ron DeSantis. Some of them have been condemned by some of their political allies, even within the same party, because they are supporting Ron DeSantis. So there's a lot of back and forth on this. A lot of people that I speak with say it's going to be a divisive primary, given the fact that whoever wins is going to go up against President Biden. And a lot of the polls show that President Biden's popularity level at this point in time is extremely low. So that creates a very big opening for the Republican Party, and whether or not the Republicans want to go with someone like Donald Trump, who did lose in the 2020 campaign, remind you, a lot of people still feel that he is their best chance at surging back to power. After all, he does most definitely have the highest amount of name recognition out of any of the candidates currently in the field. Or the other alternative, kind of in that debate there, do they want to go for someone who is more experienced in the political aspect of things, but not as well known and perhaps not as great a chance, at least the polls suggest, at winning in 2024?
An engineer and computer programmer has created an app for those who can't speak due to a medical emergency as a result of his own stroke last year. Dr. Matthew Berryman is now launching the Talk For Me app. He spoke to 6 News about his experience.
So last year I had a hemorrhagic stroke, which was basically a bleed to the brain. And it was the left front side of my brain, so that meant I was totally paralyzed on the right side of my body. I'm bearing in mind I'm right-handed, so that left me with the left hand to communicate with. And I couldn't talk for a period of 3 weeks, and then slowly regained the ability to talk after that. So I spent 3 weeks in bed in hospital, unable to talk, and all I had to communicate was slowly typing left-handed on my devices, and a couple of sheets of paper with various images on them where I could point to the images to communicate, like I'm feeling sick or I want food. And that was very limiting. And I thought them, because there wasn't anything relevant to, it wasn't much relevant to my situation. Like I wanted to tell people to turn on the TV, and there wasn't a TV on the piece of paper. So I thought there has to be a better way. So now that I've recovered, I've developed an app for communicating. It features image recognition. So you select an image, it has image recognition, so it suggests text. You can always edit it, so sometimes the image recognition doesn't work, or it comes up with the wrong thing. So you can edit it, the text, and make it more descriptive. And then it features text-to-speech output, so that you can not just point to the images, but you can have the device read it out aloud. As you can see, some items, and you can add items by pressing on the plus icon and selecting a photo. And it's come up as Egyptian cat. And if you just want to say cat, you can just delete like so. And you can delete items and change the order of them like so.
That's fantastic. So, you
yeah,
can really put in really what's relevant to you.
Yeah.
That looks an awful lot like my cat.
That was your cat.
I thought so. I thought, where's I seen that picture before? All right, let's now check in with Ivan and Melly with look what's making news right now on WAMN News.
Thanks, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, is voting no racist? Why prominent First Nations leaders switched from the no to yes camp. An exclusive interview coming up.
Firefighters ramp up their battle for better pay as the nursing union faces a record fine over last year's strike.
15-year-old alleged school shooter faces multiple charges, prompting further push on firearm legislation.
Suresh Rajan weighs in on the Indian Prime Minister's trip to Australia and later Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
All right, a reminder of the top stories we are following on 6 News this hour. An independent Senator Lydia Thorpe has revealed she will lodge a human rights complaint against the Greens over alleged racist treatment which she was a member. She has also said she won't lead a progressive no campaign against the Indigenous voice, denying she's in the no camp at all. And Central Victoria's footy community is in mourning after the death of a teenage boy during a game. The club has today opened its doors as a safe space for those affected. And that is 6 News for this hour. There is more news 24/7 on our website, 6newsau.com, and on social media. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. More news coverage continues right after this. For now, though, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.